It's time for Comeback Sports with Brandon, the Coach Perry, and Pat, the shot caller Flaherty. Here we go.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Comeback Sports. We give you 10 sports topics of the week, 10 of the hottest topics going on in sports across the board. I am your host, Pat the Shot Caller Flaherty. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Brandon the Coach Perry. Brandon, what's happening, my friend?
What's up, Pat? Looking to get into these great topics that we have tonight. A couple of ones that are inspired by fans, so I hope they're watching.
Yes. We're an interactive sports talk show. We don't just talk to you guys. We listen as well. So make sure you tune in every week on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. If you want to catch us every week, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Comeback Sports. You can also take a look at our Twitter handles down at the bottom of the screen there, as Brandon's pointing out. We always tweet out the links, and we tweet out a lot of other good stuff on our Twitter handles as well. So let's get right into it as usual here on Comeback Sports. Our first topic of the evening is the J.J. Watt contract. J.J. Watt is going to be signing with the Arizona Cardinals. It's a 2-year, $31 million deal after he was released by the Houston Texans. Watt was slated to be one of the top defensive players that was going to be available this offseason. I just think a lot of people were shocked by the amount of money in the contract for sort of an aging defensive lineman. Brandon, what do you think?
To be honest, I'm not shocked about the money. I think a team would be willing to pay that guy that much because he's going to come in and not only affect your defense right away, but he's also going to work out and help in the locker room and the community. Obviously, we've seen him raise millions of dollars for the Hurricane Harvey, believe it was in Texas. So, I mean, this guy is a great player, and he's somebody that you definitely want on your team. He's somebody that we're going to talk about in a couple of topics tonight because he'll be part of the modern day contract topic as well later in the show. But as far as this one, he's a great defensive end. I think now when you pair him up with Chandler Jones, I think Arizona arguably has one of the best defensive lines now in the NFL. Last year, they were already number one at pressuring the quarterback and sacking the quarterback. And now you add in a reigning defensive player of the year that is still just a scary guy coming off the edge. I mean, before Aaron Donald, and I would say Aaron Donald is currently the most dominant, scary defensive lineman in the NFL. Before Aaron Donald, it was J.J. Watt. It was J.J. Watt. And only recently, over the last couple of years, has Aaron Donald taken that mantle away from J.J. Watt. So I think he's still got a lot left in the tank. He's also rejoining forces with DeAndre Hopkins, and I think that's huge. And we saw that. So I think they played with the Texans. They played great together. There's great chemistry between those two. So I think that's going to help out in Arizona. And like I said, it's just going to help this defense just improve and get better. But I think he really was the number one defensive free agent out there that people wanted to get. He was the Deshaun Watson, per se, of the free agency on the defensive side. Deshaun Watson is probably the number one player that people are trying to acquire right now and on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. But I would say J.J. Watt was pretty close, to be honest, after Deshaun Watson, and especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, definitely one of the top guys. I was almost surprised that it was the Cardinals because the Cardinals already have a good defense, but I think what's going on right now, too, is that Arizona's looking at the rest of their division and saying, okay, the Rams are trying to boost up their offense. They just picked up Stafford, and they already have, their top two receivers locked up. They got a nice, young running back. They've had a good offensive line for a few years. They already have a good defense. So we need to stop the Rams offense in addition to trying to stop Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. If Russell says, a little foreshadowing to a future topic. So that division has good offenses, good quarterbacks now. So they're thinking about that in addition to looking at the fact that, their young quarterback, even though he was the first pick in the draft and got the most money of anybody in his draft class, he's still not on that huge quarterback number for the salary cap, so they can spend in other ways. And one of those ways is on the defense. So they're just trying to boost up their defense. It's sort of an arms race going on in the NFC West right now. I was a little bit surprised at the money, but it's also a short-term deal. It's only 2 years, but he got $23 million guaranteed. So I think that's the big thing. I would worry about Watt playing 16 games or even 12 games. I mean, he's gotten beat up. He's had injuries. For a while, he was really durable. And then he started becoming sort of the Rob Gronkowski, where it was like this elite player at his position, but constantly getting banged up. So you wonder if he's going to last a full season. Even if he plays, like I said, 12 to 14 games, that would be huge for this Cardinals team. Still a great player. Like you mentioned, not on the level of Aaron Donald anymore, but still a great player and definitely brings a veteran presence to that locker room. Certainly the Patriots were a team that a lot of people thought would try to go after J.J. Watt or some other teams like a Seattle or Chicago or something like that. But Watt landing in Arizona, certainly a good thing for Arizona.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair to question his durability. And it might be one thing at this point in his career where you might just rest him early in the season and then just try to play him later in the season, and especially if you think you're a playoff caliber roster, so that he's kind of peaking when it comes to the playoffs. But moving on to Russell Wilson, is this guy on the market or what? It just seems like he says he wants to be traded, and then his camp saying that he doesn't want to be traded. But hey, here's the 4 teams that we would want to be traded to if we're going to be traded. Like, what's going on? Is this guy on the market or not?
I know that was strange. Like you just said, his agent was like, he doesn't want to be traded from Seattle. He loves it in Seattle. But if he were traded, here are the 4 particular teams that he wants to go to. So clearly Wilson's been talking to his agent about it. That discussion has clearly happened. So I don't think he's moving this year. I don't think that's going to happen. He was frustrated with the way that they got bounced out of the playoffs in that first round to the Rams. They're playing the best defense, I think, in football in the Rams. So, they couldn't stop the pass rush. They couldn't stop Aaron Donald. Jalen Ramsey's on the outside, taking one of his receivers away. I think he was frustrated at the end of the season because of the way that Seattle was bounced out of the playoffs. Seattle was really good throughout the season. Then, like the last month, they started to drop off a little bit, as they head into the playoffs. So I think he was frustrated with what's going on. But you also got to remember, if you're Russell Wilson, you have Tyler Lockett, who's a really good number 2 receiver who you've been playing with for years now. And now you have DK Metcalf, who is an absolute stud, still on his rookie contract. Absolute stud, beast. And then, I like Chris Carson. I think he's a solid running back. He's not an elite running back, but solid. He'll take a pounding. Those short yardage running situations, he's very good at. Good goal line back. They're going to probably bolster the offensive line a little bit. So, and you're playing for an organization that Pete Carroll's a good coach. The owner he gets along with. I don't see why Wilson has any reason to want to leave there, except for the fact that the way they ended the season last year. And also, I think he's seeing Tom Brady leave his original team and then go to another ideal situation in Tampa. Maybe that kind of sparked his interest about leaving Seattle a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a good point about, the roster that he's currently playing with. It's not bad at all. I think they're just a few pieces away. And I think this is actually a power move by Russell Wilson to just have more play with the roster and kind of like Deshaun Watson being like, if you're not going to give me some say, then I might have to move on. And it's similar to the Watson thing, but a little different because I think Russell Wilson is just using Watson's situation to help him out currently, so he can gain more leverage with the organization to have more control over the roster, because I think they are just a few pieces away from going deeper into the playoffs and having a better playoff run. And I think he is also frustrated with the offensive line and the offensive line play. He hasn't been protected. He's been on the run. If you can give this guy some time, he'll decipher a defense and make better decisions. Like you said, he's got great targets with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. So I think they just need to bolster their offensive line. Hopefully they're going to be looking to do that in the offseason and in the draft. One of the spots that he said he was willing to be traded to was the Las Vegas Raiders. A, it's Vegas, baby. Who doesn't want to go to Vegas? And then B, they have one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. And they protect Derek Carr very good. So I think that's the thing. I think if you can get a couple more roster pieces on Seattle, and then improve that offensive line, I don't see Russell Wilson going anywhere. I think this is just a power move.
Yeah, I agree with you. The one team that was weird to be on that list, I thought, was the Bears. I mean, I know they have a good defense, and but their coaching situation's not necessarily 100%. Are they going to franchise tag Allen Robinson? What are they doing there? So I'm surprised that the Bears were on that list of just 4 teams. Because it's a pretty select list. Moving on to our third topic of the day is NFL free agency. Several guys have been released. Not just Deshaun Watson, but we saw Kyle Van Noy, who was a favorite here in New England, just get released after 1 year with the Miami Dolphins, where he signed a pretty big deal to go there, in the offseason. And also, we saw Kyle Rudolph, who got released by the Vikings. Those are 2 guys and then Alex Smith, who is getting released by the Washington football team. All 3 of those guys could be considerations for the Patriots in this situation. What do you think, Brandon?
Yeah, no, all those guys you just named are great, veteran players that I think the Patriots should really take a look at bringing in. And right before we got on the show, there was just released that Golden Tate is going to get released from the Giants. I mean, so now we're talking about another veteran receiver that they could possibly put on the roster that I think could help out immediately. So honestly, here's the thing. I think if use your draft picks, if you can move up in the draft and acquire a guy like a Kyle Pitts or a Devontae Smith, move up from 15 to maybe the top 5 if you can, definitely top 10 to try to make a run at these guys. I think that would be huge. And then I would sign Alex Smith. I would sign him to a 1-year deal, just like I had with Cam Newton. And then I would go ahead and I'd pick up Kyle Rudolph and I'd pick up Golden Tate. And I'd try to get those guys because now we've got some offensive weapons. We've got a veteran quarterback that is reliable, that can play, that can get it done. I think that did not get a chance in Washington to kind of prove himself. And I think he obviously was the comeback player of the year after his injury, but I think he's still got a lot left in the tank. And I think it'd be worth giving him at least a 1-year go because I don't think you're going to be able to move up in the draft high enough to get one of the better QBs. I mean, you possibly, if you move up into the top 10, you could have a chance at Justin Fields. But I don't think you take Justin Fields with a top 10 pick. Top 20 pick, yes. But Kyle Pitts and Devontae Smith, I think, would be a better choice. But realistically, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of veterans out there right now that I think Bill Belichick is really looking at. And I think he's kind of just waiting. And this could be the good thing for the Patriots, the wait and see game to see who else is going to get released. Because, I mean, like I said, just today, Golden Tate getting released, and there's another option there as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Kyle Rudolph is definitely on the Patriots' radar. I think there's already been reports that the Patriots are interested. My ideal tight end for them to sign in this offseason, I would love to see them sign Jonnu Smith. He's only 25, has really kind of been on the upswing with the Titans. Was having a good start to the year last year, and then when their left tackle, Tyler Lewan, tore his ACL, they actually used Smith more as an inline blocker than a receiver. Patriots want their tight ends to block. So Smith is one of those guys who can clearly block, and obviously he's a very good pass catcher, very agile, and he's just 25. So, I think he's going to get better as the years go on. But I wouldn't mind Kyle Rudolph either. I still think, if you're looking at the tight end position, I still think Devin Asiasi has some talent. He had a really rough year last year in many different fronts. He lost his best friend. He was injured during training camp. I mean, he had all these things happen on top of it being sort of a COVID-shortened offseason. So I'm not writing off Devin Asiasi at all. But I think a veteran like a Kyle Rudolph and then, Jonnu Smith, like I said, would be my ideal guy. But I think that would be great for a team like the Patriots just to have stability at that position. They haven't had it since Gronk left, and they definitely need that. Wouldn't hate Alex Smith either. I think Alex Smith would be the perfect guy to sign if they do draft a quarterback in the first round, or if they even draft a guy in the second round, because Smith's already done it once in Kansas City. He was, they call these guys placeholders. I mean, Smith is a quality starting quarterback. He can get you to 8-8, maybe even better. He can run the offense. He's going to do what you ask him to do. And he's also not going to, fly off the handle if he knows that there's another guy waiting in the wings to be the man, because he dealt with that with Pat Mahomes. And he knew it, So I think that he would be a great guy to have as the starting quarterback. If you are going to go get a quarterback, say in the first round or, higher in the second round, a guy that you really like. The biggest thing about drafting quarterbacks, is that there's, 5 or 6 guys in the first round that are going to be drafted this year. And probably 2 of them are going to be really good, and then 3 of them are going to be just kind of average or even worse. So the Pats got to figure out who they really like, who's the guy they love, and then do they go get him, or do they wait and see if he drops to 15 or pick a guy up in the second round? But yeah, I think Smith would be a nice pickup too. And I'd love to see Kyle Van Noy back. I mean, why not add more veteran linebackers? Dante Hightower said he's opting back in for the upcoming season. You got Pat Chung back, so you're going to have a good mix of veteran players on that defense, along with, the young guys like Josh Uche and Chase Winovich and Jennings on the outside there. So, I think any one of those guys that just got released would be great pickups for the Patriots.
Yeah, no, I think bringing Kyle Van Noy back, I think it's happening. I think that's already happening. The McCourty Tins were tweeting out to him like an hour after it was official. So I think, he's going to come back. I mean, the guy just made a boatload of money. He made $30 million guaranteed for that 1 year. Okay, so why not come back? You got plenty of money. Come back and play in New England, a place that you love, and definitely going to improve the defense. And as far as quarterbacks out there, obviously there's, Lawrence is number 1. I think Justin Fields is up there. And then the kid from BYU, Wilson, he's certainly been moving up my board. That kid looks pretty good. I'd like to get a couple more looks at his game film. But I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on whether or not the Patriots should draft him. But moving on to topic number 4. And this is a fan-inspired topic from Tim from the Tri-Town. Tim from the Tri-Town with his post about Deshaun Watson being a Karen and that he should play out his contract and just finish his contract in Houston and like it.
Yeah, first of all, we're getting a lot of traction with this topic. We're getting emails, we're getting live chats, we're getting folks that we know telling us what we should talk about with this topic. So this is great. There's different situations for different athletes all the time. When it comes to NFL players, I am all about try to make as much money as you can while you're playing. NFL players especially have such short careers. Do what you can to get that big deal. I never, when a guy leaves one of my favorite teams, it's for more money. I never blame that player. I totally understand. You're doing it for your family. You're setting your life, the rest of your life up. All these athletes have to worry about the amount of money they make in less than a 10-year span because they have to use that money and they have to live off that money for the rest of their life. People don't realize that. The rest of us work for 40, 45 years, possibly longer, and these athletes are only working for 7, 8 years. That's a good career in the NFL. So these guys got to worry about making enough money in 7 or 8 years to last them 60 or 70 years, and maybe longer. So I think there's different situations with guys' contracts and not honoring them and so forth. The Deshaun Watson situation to me, and what I've been tweeting at people, we've talked about it on the show a million times. He signed a big deal. They gave him a big deal. He should honor that big deal. Yes, but his owner promised him something and then didn't deliver. So you want Watson to sign a contract and live up to it. Totally get that. It's a fair contract. He got a ton of money. He deserves it. He's that good. But then your owner promises something, and then the owner doesn't do what he promised he was going to do for that player. Who's your franchise player? Who's seen, DeAndre Hopkins get traded? Who's seen instability in the front office? Who's seen J.J. Watt just get released? So you want this guy to sign off on all that. You want this guy to take hits because the offensive line isn't good enough. But then you're not going to do what you said you were going to do with him. You're not going to involve him, have him pick the GM, but let him be involved in the GM process. Let him be involved in the finding the head coach process. And that's what's happening. He's just not been given a voice in that process. Not even deciding it, but not given a voice. And that's what he's upset about. I don't like the way that James Harden handled his situation in Houston. I hated that. He didn't come in shape. He didn't play well. He was dogging it. He wasn't you see it now in Brooklyn. He's so happy. He's playing. He's like an MVP candidate right now. And I hated the way he handled that in Houston. So there's different situations for different players and different contracts. Yes, players should stick to their contract and honor it. But when you have somebody else who's your owner or your coach not honoring something they committed to, then why are you supposed to be the one that's the upstanding citizen and honor everything? So that's what frustrates me, and I have no problem with what Deshaun Watson is doing.
I mean, first off, it seems like James Harden didn't catch nearly as flack as Deshaun Watson's catching right now.
Nice.
So it's absurd, okay? So at first, if you're going to complain about Deshaun Watson, then you should have complained about James Harden. If not, can it? Another thing is this is just a simple lesson. Hey, Tim, especially, this is a simple lesson of supply and demand. That's modern day sports, unfortunately. And so you're supplying it, right? Or your demand is making the supply, right, go up and it increase the value of it. So it's like if you stop washing, then these guys won't make as much money. Or if you stop buying sweatshirts and jackets and hats and all this other stuff, then guess what? These guys won't make $1 billion when they sign a contract. And guess what? Now we're complaining about billionaires and millionaires fighting each other, okay? The billionaires are the owners. Nobody complains about them, but everybody complains about the millionaires who are the players, okay? And so there's plenty of people that we can bring up in this topic right now. So you want Deshaun Watson to play out his contract, even though the franchise does him wrong, won't listen to him, promised him many things, and then failed on all those fronts, right? Traded away his best offensive weapon, has not given him any weapons. Guess what? Deshaun Watson led the NFL in pass yards with nobody last year. With nobody. Repeat that, Brandon. Led the NFL in pass yards with nobody, okay? But you want him to play out his contract, okay? You want him to play out his contract, okay? That makes no sense, okay? But the owners can cut people. They can cut people and cut bait. Kyle Van Noy, just like we talked about, signed a 4-year deal for $51 million, okay? They just cut him after 1 year. 1 year. Guess what? Luckily, Kyle Van Noy got $30 million guaranteed. So it's all about guaranteed money with these modern-day contracts. That's all you can really get. If you have guaranteed money built in, then that's exactly what it is. It's guaranteed. They can't do anything. They have to give it to you no matter what. But they can also cut you. They can cut you day one if they want. And that's the difference here. So I don't see why so many fans are complaining about the players having a right and a say where they go and what they do and their contracts when they're not complaining about these billionaire owners being able to cut bait anytime they want for any reason. Just like, guess what, Tim? You can get fired at your job for any reason tomorrow. Your company just doesn't care. You know what? It's probably in your contract that you signed. You can get dismissed for any reason if the company wants to do that. And so it's the same thing here. So don't complain about Deshaun Watson basically saying, hey, Texans, you're dismissed. You're dismissed and I'm going to a new team. So just trade me now at this point. And I guarantee you when he signs with a new team, I'll be wearing his jersey on this show. So can't wait. Let's buy it up. And guess what? My money's in a part of that supply and demand that's making these modern day contracts. And I understand that at this point. Guess what? I'm not in control of that. I don't have the power over that. Neither do you. Okay. So either stop watching sports or keep buying your stuff and keep watching sports. You get what I'm saying? I just don't get why these guys complain. And especially about Deshaun Watson, a guy that has donated millions of dollars during Hurricane Harvey, gave $50,000 checks to employees of the Texans that worked in the cafeteria. Most recently donated 10,000 meals to his hometown in Georgia. During the freeze in Texas, most recently with the natural disasters, housed and fed first responders, that's police and firefighters and EMTs, housed and fed them so they could continue to do their work. And then he also fed thousands of people. So just, stop complaining about Deshaun Watson. Pick somebody else. You guys look like clowns.
Yeah, the guy's literally done everything he's been asked to do and then some up until this point. And now he's saying, how come you aren't doing everything that you said you would do? And that's the biggest thing right there. Real quick, too, some folks think one of the reasons why Kyle Van Noy just got cut after 1 year into his deal is that Miami's clearing cap space to make a big trade for, that's right, Deshaun Watson. So we'll have to continue to monitor that situation. We've talked about Deshaun Watson since we started this show a few weeks ago, and it continues to play out here in 2021. But moving on to our next topic, one of the biggest things that has been happening over the last few months with, the NBA, as far as sort of like, I guess, off the court stuff, but literally on the court actually, is ever since what happened with Kobe Bryant over a year ago, a lot of folks have been saying that Kobe should be the new silhouette in the NBA logo. Brandon, what do you think about that happening for this new NBA logo that everybody's trying to sign a petition to get this done?
I'm all for it. I need to go sign this petition. I didn't realize it was going on. I'm all for it. There were calls for this to happen when Kobe was still alive, because it's a new generation. And I think, a lot of players, if you were to ask like high school players, college players, even guys in their young 20s, if they knew who Jerry West was, could tell us where he played and stuff like that, they probably would have no clue. So I do think the new generation needs somebody different on the logo. And Kobe's the guy. Kobe's the guy. Like I said, Kobe was the guy when he was still alive. I love that silhouette picture of him. Obviously, it won't be with the Lakers colors. It will be just a silhouette of him. But I think that would be a great one, or the one with him shooting, because his jumper was just absolutely beautiful. So, yeah, I'm all for this change for the logo. Like, I'm all for it. Make it happen. Hopefully the commissioner will jump on board here, because it seems to be gaining a lot of steam. Even Kyrie Irving was talking about it most recently in his interview, how he wants the logo to be changed to Kobe. I'm a huge Kobe fan. I was thinking about putting up a pair of Kobe's behind me tonight. I might do it in the future, because I know we'll have more Kobe. We'll have more Kobe topics. And hey, maybe they will change the logo and we'll be talking about it again.
Maybe. I think it's definitely an interesting topic. I have some skepticism, and it's not because of Kobe Bryant. I totally understand, especially with the fact that the accident was just over a year ago, what everybody's talking about. I understand refreshing the look. The thing that I kind of wonder is, number one, if you're going to not have Jerry West anymore, I think Michael Jordan should be in there at first. Why would you not have Michael Jordan, as the silhouette? Because he's the greatest player to ever play in the NBA. So, that there is one. I think Jordan's symbol, I know, and he owns that. It's the Jordan brand. So I don't know, even though if they could, there's probably some legal stuff there where the NBA would have to pay the Jordan brand to use that free throw line dunk silhouette that's used on the Jordan sneakers. But I think that's more recognizable than this Kobe silhouette, because if you look at that silhouette, we know it's Kobe. We watch Kobe all the time. Are other folks going to know it's Kobe? Now, the same thing with Jerry West. Some people, just especially younger kids, don't know that that's Jerry West because of what it looks like. And then 20 years from now, or 15 years from now, whatever you want to say, is somebody else going to be there? Is LeBron going to be the silhouette? Is, we'll see who, Luka Doncic, who's going to be the one after that? So, I think you have to actually wonder that as well. At the end of the day, I don't think, if this helps bring more attention to young kids and gets more young kids into the NBA and helps them understand who Kobe was, by all means do it. I don't think changing it is that big a deal. It's like anything else. I think that the only thing is it's going to cost money to take the old logo off and put the new logo on. That's going to be easy. So, by all means, if this is what players and fans want, then why not do it?
I've got 100-piece here, $100, that says there's a bunch of adults that don't even know it's Jerry West currently.
Yeah.
And so that's to me, and that is the issue. Obviously, you don't know your NBA history if you don't know that. But I guarantee there's a lot of just fair weather fans or weekend warriors that watch some of these games that have no clue. I think this will help with that. But you bring up a great point about Jordan. Why wouldn't Jordan be in the conversation? I think Jordan probably himself would say that he wants it to be Kobe at this point.
Yeah.
And I think you bring up a great part about the logo, the Jordan logo. It would have to be something different. It would have to be Jordan shooting, I think, because the shoe logo is just too dominant right now. Everybody thinks about that. And like you said, that's $1 billion logo pretty much right now. So I don't think the NBA can even mess with that. So it would have to be different if it was Jordan or Kobe. I'd sign on to it being Jordan. I think you got a great point. I'd sign on to it being Jordan. or Kobe at this point, because those are 1 and 2. So yeah, hey, hopefully we'll see. It might not change at all, but we'll see. So all right, topic 6 for tonight. This is a crazy one. Our producer Ben comes up with the titles here, not us. So the Celtics don't stink. I never said they did, honestly. And I've been the one that's saying, hey, give this team some time and just kind of relax. I think they're going to be a lot better after the All-Star break. Obviously, they've just won 3 games in a row. What are you thinking about that, Pat?
Well, on our last show, I was like, wait, don't fire Brad Stevens right now. Like, there's no reason to do it midseason. It's not going to make them better. And then I think it was either that night or the night after they blew another game and that they should have won. And I was yelling at the TV, fire Brad Stevens. This team needs a wake-up call. What are they doing? Come on, like, this is terrible. Like, Tatum's, like, just got his head down and he's sulking. I was so mad at the Celtics either that night or the day after. But, you're right. We continue to overreact this season to some bad trends. And, their last couple of games, it still hasn't looked great, But I think there's a couple of things that you can take out of the last 3 games for the Celtics that are positives. Number 1, Kemba Walker just looks better. On top of, I think he looks healthier, he looks quicker, and now he's starting to hit shots. I thought, the last few weeks he was looking quicker. Didn't look like the knee was bothering him, but he wasn't hitting shots. Now he's hitting shots. He's looking quicker. He's going to the basket a little bit more. So I think that's number 1. Number 2, the game against Washington, they didn't have Jaylen Brown, and yet they still won in the last second. I thought Tatum played great in that game. He got the ball, late in the game a few times and went to the basket and scored for the game winner. He didn't do that step-back 3 that everybody cringes every time they see it, even though he can hit it. So that was encouraging. And then, last night they were playing the Clippers, and the Clippers didn't have Kawhi Leonard. So I don't consider it necessarily a quality win. Tatum looked awful last night, but Jaylen Brown was good in the first half, wasn't good in the second half. Kemba Walker looks good again. Robert Williams made a huge impact on the game last night. Peyton Pritchard had a huge impact on the game last night. So even though the Clippers didn't have Kawhi, and Tatum wasn't playing well, the Celtics still were able to win because of some of their bench guys, and that's what they need right now. They need to figure out those core guys to go with Tatum and Brown, and they still might add somebody at the trade deadline. I think if they don't, then there's a problem. Whether it's a huge deal with the trade exception or a smaller deal with a wing or possibly both, they got to do something. But, yeah, I think, it's such a condensed season, and we're going to get into this in the next topic, but guys need rest. Some guys have had COVID. It's just such a weird year. You're going to have – I think the losing streaks are going to last longer this season because of how dense the schedule is, of how tired some of these guys are from the bubble and from the fact that they started earlier than anybody expected. So, I think we probably did as fans overreact a little bit to the Celtics, but it wasn't pretty. And it still kind of isn't pretty yet, but they just look better. They definitely do.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's high school, college, or pros, a win's a win. So it's good to see these guys getting wins and getting a small little win streak together here with putting 3 in the win column over the last couple here. But hey, if you're looking forward to this show, or if you look forward to it every week like I am, and you like what you're watching, make sure you give us a follow and a subscribe, because we really need it and we love you. Follow us on Twitter. But yeah, hey, give these Celtics some more time to come together. Like you said, Kemba's really starting to come together after his injury, and I think he needed some time. It's honestly, as a fan, as a coach, as a player, I think, hey, it's taken a little longer than we all expected for him to come back into form. But I think these last 3 games have shown that he's starting to get it back together, and hopefully it will continue on. But we need him. He is part of our big 3, and I had said this multiple times on the show previously, that we need him, the big 3 of Tatum, Brown, and Kemba Walker. If we can get those 3 going, the Celtics will be able to make a run into the playoffs. I still don't think this is a title contending team because, like you said, I think you got to go ahead and make a move, potentially for a big man, to solidify the front court. But yeah, I'm happy as a fan to see them start winning. And like I said, I can understand fans, and this is even going back to our earlier topic, I can understand fans complaining and wanting value for these contracts that these guys are getting paid and even what these coaches are getting paid. I totally get it. Okay. But, sometimes we just got to wait a little bit. And I think even for this Celtics team, I think we have to wait until after the All-Star break to see, are they going to be able to put it together? Hopefully, Kemba would be able to play like he's been playing these last 3, and they'll keep putting him in the win column. I mean, all they got to really be, in my opinion, put yourself in the top 5 going into the playoffs, and I think that puts you in a good spot to be able to make a little run. And that's with this current roster. If you don't bring somebody into the front court, then this team doesn't have a chance of winning the title.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, they're definitely not at a championship caliber level yet. And for them to get there as well, the top 2 guys need to be better. Jaylen Brown was awesome at the beginning of the year, the last couple of weeks, and I know his knees kind of hasn't been great, but those guys need to be better too. If they want to be the 2 max contract players, they need to carry this team sometimes when the team's not at 100%. And I think we'll see them grow into that as time goes on. It might be this year, it might be next year, it might be after that. We'll see how it goes. But that kind of does lead into our next topic, which is topic number 7. It seems like players in the NBA are now making the NBA All-Star game a priority. Some guys are missing games, the week before or the first game before the last game before the All-Star break. They're taking off, and then they're going to the All-Star game. So is this, first of all, something that you think's going on, Brandon? And if so, what do you think about this?
Sadly, I think it is going on. I think fans should be complaining about this, especially for your franchise and for your team. Because like you said, taking games off just so you can go and play in an all-star game, especially during a year of COVID, to me just makes no sense. I mean, we talked about earlier on this show that we didn't agree with the NBA pushing the all-star game forward with the 3-point and the dunk contest all compressed. Anyway, it just doesn't seem right with this global pandemic going on currently. And even with the vaccines coming down the line, I think they should just still wait. You could have a great all-star game next year, probably a game that's a lot more close to normal, but you don't want to wait at this point. And it's all about money. And we know we've said that before. Like I said, this is something that the fans should be complaining about because you're not getting the value of the player's contract with him sitting on the bench. And these games do matter when we're talking about playoff seeding and stuff where the all-star game is meaningless. For them, they get paid bonus contracts, especially if they win the game. They get paid bonus money, and making the all-star game is, usually built into their contract where they're getting a bonus just for making the game. So it's one of those things where I do think the players are prioritizing it because of the money. They're getting paid a lot more money just for making the game. They'll get paid money for winning. They'll get paid money for the dunk contest if they win. They'll get paid money for the 3-point contest if they win. There's sponsors that are up for grabs, Gatorade, plenty of sponsors that are going to be all over, especially the 3-point and the dunk contest, and the skills challenge if they have that. So it's just one of those things where, I do think they are prioritizing it, and probably in the wrong year, in the wrong setting. I would like to see these guys, hey, playing your games out. If you need rest and you're hurt, then that's a totally different thing. Then you probably shouldn't be playing in the All-Star game. You probably shouldn't be in the 3-point contest. You probably shouldn't be in the dunk contest because we need you to rest and get better because we have a second half of the season where we're going to try to make a playoff push here. So, obviously these are pro athletes and they do have a lot of say in this. So, hey, this is one thing where I do think that, they need to show a little bit better judgment, I guess should say, when it comes to playing in this game. If you're 100% healthy and you're playing all these games leading up to it, then, hey, I've got nothing to say. Go ahead and play it. But if you're asking for a day off in one of these franchise games before the All-Star game just so you can rest to go play there, I disagree with that.
Yeah, and it's surprising that, like LeBron's sitting out tonight, and then he's going to go play in the All-Star game when he didn't really want to. So one of the things I'm wondering is, is the commissioner or is somebody from the league or the owner saying to these guys, we really need you to play in the All-Star game. We need to have an All-Star game because of the revenue we've lost, over the last year or so. So I'm wondering if that's going on and nobody really knows the full details of it. But just as a Celtics fan, and not just that, a lot of the players, along with the media members and folks that were down in the bubble last summer and into the early fall, were saying it was tough, and they didn't want to complain about it because there's other people going through a pandemic, all the social justice issues that were going on. The guys didn't want to complain, but when you kind of like took it to the side and they were able to talk to some of the media members that they felt comfortable with, they said, like it was really hard not to see family, to be isolated. They didn't like go out to restaurants and stuff. I mean, they had a couple in the bubble, but after a while, going to the same place all the time it drives you bonkers. We all know what that's like during the pandemic, So, but so I think that part was hard. So that wore them down a lot. Then the season started in December when they thought it was going to start in January. From what I understand, I think in early November or mid-November, all the players thought that the season was going to start, sometime in January. And then a couple of weeks later, they were like, no, we're going to start in December, and that's 3 weeks away. So I think, these players, need rest. Last night watching Jason Tatum, it looked like he's just tired. He just looks exhausted. He's coming off COVID a few weeks ago, and I'm sure that's had a issue that gave him an issue with breathing and stamina and running up and down the floor. I totally understand that. Then you shouldn't be going to the All-Star game, or you shouldn't be playing in the All-Star game. You shouldn't be in the three-point contest. Number one, it's just a bad look. I mean, if you guys are going to talk about being exhausted, both mentally and physically, which we all can totally understand, that's totally understandable. This season is condensed. It's 72 games in a much shorter calendar, season. So I totally understand if these guys are physically and mentally exhausted. But then why are you going to the All-Star game? So it's kind of like a question that I still haven't seen answered by anybody. Tatum's now going to be a starter in the All-Star game. He's excited to play with Bradley Beal, who Beal was kind of like a big brother to him and stuff. I totally get that. But it just doesn't look right to me. It doesn't sit right with me that these guys are playing in the All-Star game. So I'm wondering if, the commissioner got involved and owners got involved and said, we need to make money off of this, so we need you guys to play.
Yeah, two things quickly. If Jason Tatum wants to play with Bradley Beal, go tell Danny Ainge to trade for him. Because I know Bradley Beal wants off the Wizards anyway. He can say all of that he doesn't, but we know that he does. And then secondly, if the players want to complain about the bubble, which I still think that's funny, and I get it, I totally get it, but I would love to spend a couple months at a 5-star resort at Disney World, like having beautiful food just brought to my door and stuff like that. So I think they need to can it on the complaining about that at this point, especially when other people are suffering during this global pandemic. So moving on to the red shirts for Tiger. I'm glad he said that. That you're probably all wondering why we were both wearing red today. I texted Pat earlier today and said, the topic was this weekend, how on Sunday, all the golfers were wearing the red for Tiger. And I said, hey, we should probably wear some red for Tiger on the show since that's going to be the topic that we're going to talk about. But it was great to see all those golfers wearing red on Sunday.
Yeah, it was very cool. I mean, we talked about this last week after his accident. I'm not his biggest fan off the course. I still have some trepidations on calling him a good guy or anything like that. But it does seem like he has matured. It seems like what happened to him with his wife and, with his previous car accident and with some of the stuff that happened to him has changed him a little bit. We talked about it last week, how one of the golf reporters said Tiger used to want to make the other golfer that he was playing with uncomfortable, during tournaments to use that as an advantage. Now he wants to make the player with him be comfortable because that's better for him because he wants to engage with players, engage with fans, and be more of social and be more pleasant to be around, really. So I think he has changed a little bit. And I think these younger guys have probably seen that change. A lot of these guys have played with him in majors and tournaments and maybe seen him, after tournaments and at dinners and all that kind of stuff. And just the fact that some of these guys, when Kobe Bryant passed away, everybody was talking about how, a certain generation, that was their Michael Jordan. Kobe was their Michael Jordan. Well, Tiger Woods is the young guys in the PGA Tour. Tiger Woods is their Michael Jordan. Tiger Woods is the guy that, we talked about Jordan's silhouette being on all the Jordan brand stuff. Tiger Woods, same thing. Tiger Woods changed golf. He changed golf equipment. He changed the way that the courses are designed. He changed the way that guys train for golf. He changed the way that these younger guys, developed as golfers themselves. So I think that's why you're seeing all those guys wear red. And it was cool. It was a very cool thing to see.
Yeah, I mean, you had Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, Tony Finau, just to name a few that were wearing red, and it was great to see. It was great to see the support for another player and another golfer, but great to see, the support for probably the greatest golfer of all time. And, he might not have the majors and he might not get to the most majors of all time, but I think it's you can't argue that this guy, like you said, changed the game, changed the way it was watched. All these golfers can thank him for the money that they're bringing in weekly. He was the one who actually drove up all the money and drove all the interest to golf. So now even the guy that finishes in like 50th place in the tournament is making like $1 million. So it's like the golfers should be supporting this guy. He's the reason they're really getting paid fat checks every tournament. And he's, like I said, he's the greatest golfer of all time, in my opinion. His swing is just so iconic. Like you said, I mean, they could definitely put him on the PGA logo and nobody would argue with that, like you said. So I just think it's one of those things where that's why you're seeing so much support for this guy. LA County Sheriff came out today saying that they got the black box information from the engine and that they're going to, look at that information and they'll come out with an investigation after that. But, more than likely it was caused by speeding or driver error, we'll say at this point. But the greatest news is, Tiger's on the mend now. We're all looking for him to get out of the hospital over the next week or so. And hopefully, that leg is really coming together. Golf is obviously secondary at this point. So hopefully the guy can come back. I mean, and I think we're saying it's secondary at this point because he's a dad right now, first off, and a family man. And he said that many a times over these last few years, and that's his number one thing. And I'm pretty sure that he's looking forward to getting back to being that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think, everybody, that's what everybody's concerned about right now. As fans, we want him to be back. I think he's coming back. It's going to take a long time. I think he will come back. He wants to play in the senior tour, when he's in his 50s. So, and he's going to want to rip up the senior tour as soon as he gets there. And he's probably going to. So, I think it was just cool to see all those guys in those red shirts. And, a lot of it's Nike stuff. And our next topic is certainly about the shoe company, apparel company, Nike. And one of the things that came out this week was that the vice president of Nike, her name's Ann Hebert, resigned. And folks were like, well, why is this going on? And then we actually found out, as they say, the article that came out this week, Bloomberg had the big article about Nike and the fact that Ann Hebert resigned. And then we found out through the article that her son, Joe, who I believe is 17 years old, was not reselling Nikes, but kind of got in on some insider information on sneakers and started reselling sneakers at the secondary market using, basically insider trading. And, he was in this article with Bloomberg and was talking about how if you know the right people here in Oregon, you can really sell shoes here. And he was clearly talking about his mom. So, Brandon, what do you think of this? What do you think that, this kid Joe situation is? And do you believe that Ann Hebert did the right thing by resigning?
Bloomberg Business was the one that released this in a story, and this is a groundbreaking story. So cheers to Bloomberg Business for releasing that, because I mean, this is information that I think a lot of people wanted to know about. And you're wondering why you go on Sneakers app and you put in a bid for one of these sneakers and, oh, sorry, your bid didn't win. But this guy has won over 100 pairs, obviously, because his mother was running the Sneakers app. And on top of that, had all this inside information, and he was using bots. He was using computer bots to basically put in millions of entries. And so he can get 100 pairs of shoes when we put in one entry and we get denied. So I think this is, like you said, clearly insider trading. I'd like to see somebody get arrested for this, honestly. Arrest this little punk, send him to juvenile for a while, And honestly, and if you don't think it's a crime, teach the kid a lesson that he needs to keep his mouth shut next time, because it was all his post, like we're seeing here, that brought the attention to being like, how is this kid getting all these unique, high exclusive pairs of shoes when people can barely get one? And he's sitting on stacks of them and making thousands of, if not millions of dollars at the age of 17 off of reselling these shoes. A lot of them which are exclusive Jordans and exclusive Nikes. All right. And obviously his mother being a vice president of Nike. And like I said, was specifically in charge of the sneakers app where you try to get these exclusive shoes. So it's ridiculous. And honestly, I think she did the right thing with stepping down. I think obviously Nike forced her to step down. And Nike, you need to do more at this point to basically bring back the faith in your company and especially in the sneakers app, because people are just like, what the heck? I've been getting robbed for years from this little punk while he just sits in Oregon with his mommy and using all these bots to get all these exclusive shoes. So, Nike's got a lot more rebuilding to do to fix this story. Obviously, this just broke over the last few days, and I think people are mad, and I'm actually one of them. I'm one of them. So this is crazy. Honestly, I would love to see her get arrested. I would love to see her get arrested and serve some time, because this was all money driven. This was all money driven. And she's setting her son up with all this big money. I don't know. I'm disgusted, Pat. You can go on. I'm disgusted.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at this and say, did Ann know that this was going on? And, from 5,000 feet, there's a chance she wasn't, except for the fact that he was using her credit card. He was using her American Express credit card that was under her name. So she obviously sees the statements. She didn't ask, oh, what's this $200,000 you're spending on 2,000 pairs of shoes? And you're right. He used bots, and he used to get into, I think it was Yeezy Supply that he was trying to use. He was using to get these sneakers. And, normally, like you mentioned, you go to the site and it's like one pair per customer, because a lot of these sneakers are vintage and they're hard to come by. So some of these websites are trying to do the right thing by giving them out, distributing them to letting different people buy different shoes, and not, allowing this to happen on the secondary market. And then you see this kid doing that very thing. So he's cheating out this website that's trying to combat against what he's doing. And then even if, like I said, even if Ann Hebert wasn't aware that it was going on, you have to resign from Nike, because this is a terrible look for you. Your son under your nose is doing this. You didn't see all those shoes on the back porch that we saw the pictures of before? I mean, like, what the? How did you not know this was going on? She obviously knew this was going on, or at least had a whiff of it, and just didn't say anything. She did the right thing by resigning. Like you mentioned, I think Nike probably said, "You got to go." Maybe gave her a golden parachute too. But this is crazy. This kid deserves something. Whether it's you can't use any of these sites for shoes or whatever, gets his Twitter handle suspended, or whatever accounts he's using. That should all be suspended. I mean, that's how you punish kids now, is your Twitter and Instagram accounts get suspended or even shut down. Exactly. So that's what I want to see for this guy.
Yeah, no, I mean, something's got to be done. And I love Nike. Honestly, I buy a lot of their products. So I'm hoping that they make this situation right. And if you need some advice in making it right, Nike, first off is making sure that nobody, and I mean nobody, can do this ever again, but also that nobody can use bots on these sites. I mean, come on now. I mean, with the cybersecurity and all the money that Nike has, they should be able to have cybersecurity on this app to make sure that nobody's using bots to be able to put in millions of entries when we're only getting to put in one. So Nike, you got some fixing to do on this story, and I'm sure there's more to this story coming out over the next couple of weeks, and we'll be looking to cover it as well. But here's the Bloomberg business for releasing this key information in this huge story. Moving on to our final topic of the night. And Pat, just a heads up to you, when we close the show, I got a little closing that I want to do, and that goes back to one of our other things. It's just something I want to say.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to cap off the show somehow.
But yeah, topic number 10 is the high school sports season, and in particular, especially here in Massachusetts, and a lot of other states too, you're getting into the fall 2 season, and that's due to the pandemic and COVID. So it's just a jumble here, but these kids are getting back to playing, and I guess that's the good thing.
Yeah, it's going to be strange. It's a lot to put on athletic departments right now. I like the fact that they're doing a fall 2 season to make sure that some of these football players who were supposed to play in the fall and indoor volleyball and I think a lot of soccer teams played in the fall itself because it was outside and it was safer. But I think there might be some leagues where they didn't play soccer, so they might be playing it in the fall 2 season as well. You felt for the seniors who weren't able to get that senior year. I mean, you're a football coach, Brandon. I played high school football. Certainly wasn't good enough to play in college, but you know that senior year for some guys, they don't mature physically till their senior year, so that's when they get their look for college scouting. So now these guys and gals who play volleyball, and so the boys and girls that are playing these sports at least get more college looks now, can get something on film, so they can get recruited. So that's the good thing about having this fall 2 season, and for these kids just to play this sport. Some of these sports are the only sports these kids play. I've always advocated for kids to play multiple sports and not specialize in just one. But some kids just play volleyball or just play soccer or just play football. And, so this is the one thing that they do, the one extracurricular activity they do throughout the year. And, for some players, it's the one sport that keeps them in school. It keeps them focused. I mean, I think my best grades in high school were actually during football season because I would go to school, then I would go to practice, then I knew I had to go home and do work right away, and then go to bed, get up, and do it all over again because that's the only way it could get done. So it kind of gives you like a regimented schedule to get everything in. The tough part about fall 2, at least here in Massachusetts, is a couple of things. One is facilities. There's some, stadiums and fields that are just a mess because of the winter, and we just had a massive windstorm yesterday, so I'm sure there's stuff damaged from that too. Or was that Monday? I think it was Monday. No, it was yesterday. It was Tuesday. And so you got that, and then over the winter, any school that has natural grass football stadium, that field is going to be a total mess. It's going to be really hard to play in a natural grass stadium. There's one in Boston, White Stadium. That's a really cool old school 20,000 seat stadium, but the turf is actually natural grass. There's no way they're going to be able to play on it. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, now that basketball season's over, because it really affects, mostly basketball, the football, the baseball, or the big sports, but it's other sports too. The fall 2 season is now ending sort of like mid-April. And now the spring season is starting mid-April to late April, and all the spring sports are saying, we didn't even have a season last year. Now you're telling us when we can have a season safely outside, you're saying we have to start later to fit in the fall 2 season. So now spring sports coaches and players are sort of upset, what's going on here? We're getting kind of shortchanged again. At least we're having a season, but, we're coming up short here. We're having 2 or 3 less weeks when it's already kind of shortened because, especially in New England, you just don't have good weather to start the season. So that stuff's kind of got to be, figured out. I think with situations like this, you just got to overlap. And I know some baseball teams or softball teams might not have all of their players in the first week or two. And I think, unfortunately, this year, you're just going to have to kind of figure it out because you got to, in order to get that fall 2 season in, and also for the spring sports to have a quality season themselves, you just got to overlap the 2 seasons, and you might be shorthanded in the first couple of weeks, or at least not have a huge bench. But that's just kind of something you're gonna have to deal with. I think that's the best way to go.
You bring up a great topic with spring coaches really not complaining last spring, where all the fall coaches basically cried their eyes out about their losing their season. And the spring coaches basically said, hey, we're kind of waiting, to kind of see what happens here. And I can be one of those. Obviously, I coach football, basketball, and track and field. So I go through all the different seasons. And I can tell you, like I said, as a track coach, we weren't complaining about missing the season because we knew it was right. And I think it was right for them to push off football and all these other fall sports because of COVID as well. And we're now starting to see the numbers go down. We're getting more vaccinations out. Hopefully that trend will continue, and we'll just be able to continue having sports and just making adjustments going along the way. But I mean, yeah, I'd like to see that spring season extended. I know they had talked about extending it all the way up until maybe July at this point for us in Massachusetts. And I'm not against that for giving these kids more chance to play because, like you said, they had no season last year in the spring. So give them that extra time. And, you know, another state that's playing fall too is California. And you've got a lot of studs out there on the football field and some other sports too. And I don't want to just give football love because, like you said, you do have volleyball coming back. And I think you have cross country as well, or maybe some winter track maybe that is actually trying to happen. Mixing it in. And that's the thing that you don't know right now. It depends on what state you're in and really even in your league and how they're handling it. I know the league that I coach in, it's an independent league and they've had no sports all year long. And then that's following safety guidelines and they're still not having any sports until probably the fall of 2021. And I completely understand that. So if the trend continues with these numbers of COVID numbers going down, more vaccines going up, so people get vaccinated. Yes. So these kids can have a chance to play, especially if you want to get out and get back to a normal life. I think so. If we can get those positive trends to continue, then yeah, sports will be coming back. And I've always said that, you know, sports will return. Let's just, you know, do the right thing and let's be safe because sports will return. And when they return, we'll be ready.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we do need to sort of end the show before you need to go off on what you need to go off on, is to say that we also should just be happy that we're having a fall 2 season and a spring season. And, you know, we just finished up a basketball season here in Massachusetts. I know in the city of Boston, it actually went pretty well. They had 4 weeks of a regular season basketball. Then they had a city league championship week. And it all went very well, and it, you know, everybody followed the safety protocols, and everything was good. And we're lucky that this is getting fit in. So, you know, at least we didn't lose an entire sports season, you know, the entire calendar year. So we should probably end at that with that topic. And I hope that everything works out for all the high school sports teams in this country. But, you know, we're New England guys, so you got to think about Massachusetts first, as always. But, Brandon, you had one more thing that you wanted to rant about, my friend. So I'm going to give you the last word.
Well, I still want you to close out the show because you're a professional. You do it better than me. But I do want to say, first off, you've been getting much respect for all the work that you do with City Basketball on Twitter. And I've seen that, and the kids are lucky to have you. And so is the network lucky to have you because you're great with that. So I think you deserve all the props. I've seen coaches giving you props and news people giving you props. So I think that's awesome, Pat.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, you deserve it. And then secondly, my rant is for Tim again. It's for Tim again with his Deshaun Watson thing. So my biggest thing is none of these guys that complain about Deshaun Watson complained about Carson Wentz, Matthew Stafford, or J.J. Watt doing the exact same thing that Deshaun Watson has done and saying, I want out. I don't care about my contract. I want out. I want to go to a new team. All 3 of those guys have done the exact same thing. Nobody cries about them, so stop crying about Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think, you know, we can talk about this. You know, we'll talk about this till next season probably. I don't understand what people's mindset are when they look at the instability at the top of the Houston Texans especially and just see the owner, Jack Easterby, who shouldn't be in anybody's front office. And then, you know, Nick Caserio has inherited this mess. And I think if there's one guy, there's 2 guys that might be able to try to keep Watson, although I don't think it's going to happen. It's Caserio, and I still can't remember the name of the head coach, so I apologize for that. But, you know, those are the only 2 guys that can probably keep him there, and I still don't think it's going to happen. So I don't understand people's viewpoints on there. I am with Watson 100%. It's just not just because I want him to come to the Pats, although I think that is a pipe dream at this point. But folks, Thank you so much for joining us once again on Comeback Sports. Make sure when you go on YouTube, you give us a subscription. You can see all the different shows we've done over the last few weeks. We've been doing this for a couple of months now, so make sure you check that out. Our producer, Ben Kudo, does a fantastic job cutting up different pieces of the show, so make sure you check out those little pieces as well. Or if you want to watch the entire show, that's great. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page. Follow us on Twitter, like Brendan's saying, and we always tweet out our links to the live shows and to some of the shows from the past. Make sure you go there as well. So thank you so much once again for joining us here on Comeback Sports. We'll see you next week. Have a good week, everybody. Stay safe.